Guy Seehee was only there for his daughter. Guy Seehee, the voice of James Sunderland, didn't plan to audition for Silent Hill 2. He was simply accompanying his daughter, who wanted to audition for the role of Laura. While waiting, casting directors noticed him and asked if he'd like to try out. Seehee had some acting background from high school and college, so he agreed, never imagining he'd land the most iconic role in survival horror. His daughter didn't get the part of Laura, but Seehee's impromptu audition changed the series forever. Years later, Seehee admitted he had no idea how much Silent Hill 2 meant to fans until the HD collection controversy brought him back into contact with the community. The role he stumbled into by accident became the performance that defined psychological horror gaming. Heather Morris used her Taekwondo training. Heather Morris, the voice and motion capture actress for Heather Mason in Silent Hill 3, brought real combat experience to the role. Morris had trained in Taekwondo as a child, and Team Silent asked her to use those skills during motion capture sessions for Heather's combat animations. The kicks, blocks, and physical intensity you see in Heather's fighting style came directly from Morris's martial arts background. She performed all the combat choreography herself, bringing an authenticity to the character's movements that pure animation couldn't match. Morris also studied classical ballet from age 3, which gave her the body control needed for the more subtle animations. The combination of dance training and martial arts created Heather's unique movement vocabulary, graceful when navigating environments, explosive when fighting monsters. Heather was almost named Helen. During Silent Hill 3's development, the protagonist wasn't called Heather, she was Helen. Team Silent used this name through early development until they brought Heather Morris in for voice work. After talking with Morris, the developers realized Helen felt outdated and didn't match the character's youthful, defiant personality. They changed the name to Heather, directly inspired by their voice actress. Early promotional materials and even the back of the original game's cover still showed Heather Morris as the character's full name, a combination of the actress's real name that was likely meant to avoid spoilers, since Heather Mason would have immediately connected her to Harry Mason and revealed the sequel relationship. The kindergarten cop school connection. Midwich Elementary School in the original Silent Hill looks familiar for a reason. It's an almost exact replica of the school from Kindergarten Cop, the 1990 Arnold Schwarzenegger comedy. Team Silent, working in Japan without the budget to scout American locations, used American films as visual references. They found Kindergarten Cop and meticulously recreated its school layout, hallway design, window placement, and even specific wall posters. The choice was purely practical. They needed an authentic American elementary school and found a detailed visual reference. The irony of modeling one of horror gaming's most disturbing locations after a family comedy wasn't lost on fans who later discovered the connection. It's a perfect example of how Team Silent transformed innocent source material into nightmare fuel through context and atmosphere alone. David Schaufele winged his audition. David Schaufele, the voice of Eddie Dombrowski in Silent Hill 2, had zero preparation time for his audition. Like Guy Seehee, he was only at the studio because his daughter wanted to try out. After she finished, casting directors asked if he'd be interested in auditioning too. Schaufele agreed on a whim, having no time to review scripts or prepare. He improvised his performance, drawing on instinct and raw interpretation. The casting team loved what they saw and gave him Eddie, one of the game's most complex, tragic characters. Schaufele later reflected that not having time to overthink the role might have helped him capture Eddie's authentic, raw emotional state. His spontaneous performance created one of survival horror's most memorable supporting characters. No written contracts existed. One of the most shocking revelations during the HD collection controversy was that Guy Seehey, Monica Taylor Horgan, and David Shelfel never signed written contracts for their Silent Hill 2 work. Voice actors confirmed they simply showed up, performed, got paid, and left, with no paperwork securing rights or residuals. This wasn't unusual in Japanese business culture of the early 2000s, where verbal agreements often sufficed. But it created massive complications years later when Konami wanted to port the game. The lack of documentation led to the voice replacement fiasco, community backlash, and eventually a negotiated solution where the original actors signed waivers, allowing their voices in future releases. It exposed a fundamental disconnect between Japanese and Western business practices in game development. Monica Taylor Horgan never finished the game. Monica Taylor Horgan, who voiced both Mary and Maria, admitted she played Silent Hill 2 but never completed it. Despite bringing two of the game's most pivotal characters to life, she couldn't finish the emotional journey she'd helped create. Horgan attended King's College and the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London and had done extensive voice work for English-language commercials in Japan before landing the dual role. Her inability to finish the game she starred in speaks to how emotionally heavy Silent Hill 2's story becomes. Even the actress who voiced Mary's death couldn't bear to see all the endings. Heather Morris can't escape the first room. In a delightfully ironic twist, Heather Morris, the woman who motion captured and voiced the series' first female protagonist, admits she's terrible at video games. She's so bad that she's never escaped the first room of Silent Hill 3. Morris kept running Heather into walls, unable to figure out the controls or objectives, and eventually gave up. She's never seen any of her own work in context beyond isolated cutscenes. The actress who played gaming's toughest teenage heroine can't play her own game. When fans discovered this detail in interviews, it became an endearing, humanizing moment. Proof that you don't have to be good at games to create iconic performances within them. The Silent Hill 4 title started as just Room 302. Silent Hill 4. The room didn't start development with that title. Early in production, Team Silent referred to it simply as Room 302, the apartment number that becomes Henry's prison. Fans who discovered this detail speculated the game began as an unrelated horror project that was later adapted into a Silent Hill entry. But Team Silent confirmed that's a myth. The room was always intended as a Silent Hill game, developed alongside Silent Hill 3. The studio wanted to prove the series could support different settings and characters beyond the town itself. The working title, Room 302, reflected the team's focus on claustrophobic, apartment-based horror before they'd fully integrated it into the larger mythology. Pyramid Head was originally called Red Triangle Head. During development, nobody called the monster Pyramid Head. The team referred to him as Red Triangle Head, Thing, or simply Head in production notes. The name Pyramid Head was coined by Jeremy Blaustein, the English translator for Silent Hill 2. Blaustein needed something memorable for Western audiences, and landed on the geometric description that stuck worldwide. In Japanese materials, the creature is still called Red Pyramid Thing, maintaining the original clinical descriptor. The helmet design itself was inspired by the lower hull of the King Tiger heavy tank, with Masahiro Ito finding the angular shape both imposing and symbolically appropriate for an executioner. Ito originally sketched Pyramid Head with a more deformed, hunchbacked body, but shifted to a more overtly masculine, humanoid figure to emphasize his role as judge and punisher rather than just another monster. The final boss can be defeated with no ammo. In the original Silent Hill, the final boss has an unusual vulnerability. If you enter the fight with 0 ammunition across all weapons, the boss simply dies. When the battle begins, cycle through your weapons to show you're unarmed. The boss will recognize this and collapse on the spot. This wasn't a glitch, but a deliberate design choice, rewarding players who'd been reckless or unlucky with resource management. Team Silent wanted to avoid creating an unwinnable scenario where players reached the end without enough firepower, so they programmed the boss to essentially give up when faced with a helpless opponent. It's one of the strangest boss mechanics in survival horror, a final encounter you can win by losing. Cheryl Mason was named after Cheryl Lee. Harry's daughter Cheryl in the original Silent Hill was named after actress Cheryl Lee, who played Laura Palmer in Twin Peaks. Team Silent were massive David Lynch fans, and Twin Peaks' blend of small-town mystery, surreal horror, and family trauma directly influenced the first game's atmosphere. The reference wasn't subtle to horror fans familiar with Lynch's work. A missing girl in a cursed American town echoes Twin Peaks' central mystery. Other Lynch influences permeate the series, from the industrial zone's factory nightmare aesthetics to the way reality bends around trauma. The Cheryl/Cheryl name parallel was Team Silent's way of acknowledging their inspiration while creating their own mythology. Origins was almost a comedy. Silent Hill Origins could have been radically different. Climax Studios, the developers, initially considered making it a comedy horror game inspired by Evil Dead 3 and shows like Scrubs. They wanted to blend horror and humor in ways the series had never attempted. After extensive development discussions, they realized a comedic Silent Hill fundamentally contradicted what made the franchise work. Audiences expected psychological dread, not jokes, so Climax scrapped the concept and returned to pure horror. The final game maintained the series' serious tone, though some fans still wonder what a comedy horror Silent Hill might have looked like. The decision to abandon the approach probably saved the game from becoming a franchise black sheep. Joshua Shepard was supposed to look dead. In Silent Hill Homecoming, protagonist Alex spends the game searching for his missing younger brother Joshua. When Joshua appears in Alex's memories and visions, he looks alive and healthy. Originally, developers planned for Joshua to appear as a corpse during these sequences, bloated, decayed, with obvious signs of drowning. Since Joshua is supposedly 9 years old, having him appear as a child's corpse would have been deeply unsettling. The team ultimately decided against the more graphic option, keeping Joshua's appearance innocent to preserve the plot twist. It was a rare instance of the series pulling back from its darkest impulses, choosing emotional impact over shock value. The nurses were filmed walking backwards. In the 2006 Silent Hill film, the disturbing stuttering movements of the dark nurses required an unusual filming technique. The creatures were played by dancers choreographed by Italian actor Roberto Campanella, who also performed as Pyramid Head and Colin. To achieve the unnatural motion, Campanella had the dancers walk backwards, then reversed the footage in post-production. The technique created movements that felt wrong without being obviously CGI, joints bending at odd moments, weight distribution shifting strangely, limbs moving with uncanny timing. Around 100 copies of Rose's costume were made for the film, starting in soft summer colors that gradually became grayer and eventually blood red as the story progressed. The changes were subtle enough that audiences barely noticed consciously, but the escalating color palette reinforced the descent into nightmare. Roberto Campanella wore stilts as Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head in the 2006 film needed to tower over other characters, so Roberto Campanella performed the role on stilted shoes to reach the creature's 7-foot height. The massive helmet had a tube running from the mouth through the back of the costume so Campanella could breathe during long takes. The helmet itself was heavy and unbalanced, making every movement a calculated effort. Campanella had to learn to walk, turn, and interact with props while effectively blind and off balance. His performance created the creature's distinctive, slow, purposeful movements, not just an aesthetic choice, but a physical necessity. The practical effects approach gave Pyramid Head a weighty, real presence that pure CGI couldn't match. Centralia inspired the film, not the game. Many people assume the burning coal town of Centralia, Pennsylvania, inspired the Silent Hill game, but that's backwards. Team Silent actually cited Twin Peaks, Jacob's Ladder, and Stephen King's The Mist as influences for the game's setting and atmosphere. It was Christophe Gans, director of the 2006 film, who researched Centralia and incorporated its decades-old underground coal fire, toxic gas, and abandoned streets into the movie's visual design. Screenwriter Roger Avery discovered Centralia while researching the games and realized its real-world nightmare scenario perfectly matched Silent Hill's aesthetic. The film's ashfall, cracked pavement, and toxic air came from Centralia's actual conditions. Somehow the misconception spread that Centralia inspired the games when it actually inspired the film adaptation. Team Silent were almost fired. Before Metal Gear Solid made Konami a major player in console gaming, the team that would become Team Silent were considered expendable. Most members had worked on games that underperformed commercially, and several were reportedly on the verge of being fired. Management had low expectations for their survival horror project. The team threw out their original concept and gambled everything on a new approach. Ordinary protagonist, psychological horror over action, atmosphere over graphics. That desperate creative swing became the original Silent Hill, a surprise hit that saved their jobs and launched one of gaming's most important horror franchises. The pressure of potential failure pushed Team Silent to take risks that polished, secure teams might have avoided. Streets named after horror authors. The original Silent Hill honors horror literature by naming streets after famous authors. Walking through town, you'll find Bachman Road, Stephen King's pseudonym Richard Bachman, Bradbury Street, Ray Bradbury, Block Street, Robert Bloch, Levin Street, Ira Levin, and Matheson Street, Richard Matheson. Silent Hill 2 continued the tradition with additional author references. These weren't random Easter eggs, but Team Silent's acknowledgement of the genre's literary foundations. The street names turned the town into a subtle bibliography of horror influences, suggesting Silent Hill itself exists within a tradition of psychological terror that predates video games. It was environmental world building that rewarded genre-literate players while remaining unobtrusive to everyone else. The Armless Man was inspired by the lying figure. In the 2006 Silent Hill film, the Armless Man creature featured a distinctive mask with a breathing tube running from mouth to costume back, allowing actor Michael Cota to survive inside the restrictive outfit. The character design was directly based on the lying figure from Silent Hill 2, translating the game's writhing straitjacket monsters into practical film effects. The lying figure itself later inspired the smog enemy in Silent Hill, Homecoming, creating a lineage of designs across games and films. This cross-pollination showed how the series' visual language evolved through different media while maintaining core symbolic meanings: bodies bound, faces hidden, humanity obscured. Downpour contains Easter eggs from every previous game. Silent Hill, Downpour, released in 2012, packed in references to the series' entire history. Players could find music from Silent Hill 2 playing on a gas station radio. Explore a version of Henry's apartment from Silent Hill 4. The Room. Discover the abandoned truck belonging to Travis from Origins, and encounter numerous other callbacks scattered through the world. These weren't just fan service. They suggested that Murphy Pendleton's journey connected to every previous story, that Silent Hill itself remembered all its victims. The game functioned as a series anniversary celebration, acknowledging the franchise's legacy even as it introduced new elements. For longtime fans, finding these hidden connections became a treasure hunt through nostalgia. Akira Yamaoka wasn't the original composer. Akira Yamaoka became synonymous with Silent Hill's soundscape, but he wasn't initially hired as composer. Yamaoka started as a sound designer on the first game. When the original composer left during production, Yamaoka stepped up and created the industrial noise and haunting melodies that defined the series. Without that staffing accident, Silent Hill's entire audio identity might have been completely different. Yamaoka's background in sound design rather than traditional composition gave him an unusual approach, treating music, ambient noise, and sound effects as a unified sonic landscape rather than separate elements. His unexpected promotion became one of the most influential creative accidents in gaming history. Harry's flashlight started as a glitch. The chest-mounted flashlight that became iconic in Silent Hill originated from a technical error. Early prototype builds used a global light source that followed the player. When the engine broke and accidentally anchored the light to Harry's chest position, Team Silent realized it looked natural, like he was carrying a torch. They reshaped the broken code into an intentional mechanic and rebuilt the entire lighting system around that accident. The flashlight's position created distinctive long shadows and dramatic lighting that became central to the series' visual identity. Sometimes the best design choices emerge from mistakes you're smart enough to recognize as improvements. Lisa Garland's blood tears were a texture error. One of Silent Hill 1's most haunting moments, Lisa Garland's blood tears, started as a rendering mistake. Her character model's face shader accidentally duplicated the wound texture layer over her tear ducts. When lighting shifted during the cutscene, it animated like dripping blood. The team immediately recognized the accidental horror and deliberately enhanced it, adding extra frames to make the effect intentional. A glitch became the series' most human tragedy. Lisa's blood tears symbolizing her realization that she's already dead. It's a perfect example of how Team Silent transformed technical limitations and errors into meaningful horror. The hospital wheelchair squeak is a human scream. The metallic squeak of the wheelchair in Brookhaven Hospital during Silent Hill 2 isn't a sound effect. It's a human scream. Akira Yamaoka recorded his own voice, slowed it to 1/10 speed, and ran it through a tape deck until it created that metal-on-metal whine. He wanted every noise in the game to sound like something suffering, so even ambient sounds had to carry pain. The technique turned human agony into environmental audio, making the hospital feel alive with trapped screams processed into everyday noises. It's sound design as horror philosophy. Nothing is neutral, everything hurts. SH3's Catacomb, screams are slowed, pig squeals. The distant, wordless screams echoing through Silent Hill 3's church catacombs aren't human at all. Yamaoka used recorded pig squeals that were stretched, filtered, and reversed before being layered under wind effects. The mix was deliberately unclear. Players could never be certain if they were hearing people or something else, something deeper in the walls. The audio file is literally titled Livestock Human Wave, acknowledging the blend. Yamaoka consistently used animal sounds processed into human adjacent noises, creating a bestial undercurrent beneath the human horror. Eddie's pizza steam was real-time particle effects. When you first meet Eddie in Pete's Bolorama in Silent Hill 2, the steam rising from his pizza is actual real-time particle fog, not a baked texture. Team Silent programmed it to loop inconsistently so the air looked still but unsettlingly alive, not moving naturally but not completely static either. It's one of the earliest uses of environmental particles specifically to create unease rather than realism. The technology was primitive by modern standards, but the artistic choice to make even innocent steam feel wrong exemplified Team Silent's approach to environmental storytelling. PTS baby voice was Kojima's son. The crying and laughter coming from the sink, fetus in PT, were recordings of Hideo Kojima's infant son. Audio designer Ludwig Forsell recorded the baby at home, then stretched the samples into unsettling laughter loops and layered wet sound textures beneath them. Kojima later stated, "That's my child's voice calling from a place I wish no one ever hears." The deeply personal source material made PT's horror feel intimate in ways synthetic audio couldn't achieve. Using his own child's voice in a horror context revealed Kojima's willingness to sacrifice personal boundaries for artistic impact. The Crimson Ceremony chant is multi-language gibberish. The chant heard during Silent Hill 3's final boss fight sounds like ancient religious language, but it's actually meaningless, sort of. Linguists who analyzed the audio discovered it's a hybrid of Latin, Hebrew, and Sanskrit phrases stitched together. Real funeral hymns and mistranslated words for rebirth and guilt appear, but arranged incorrectly and mixed with pure invention. The result is spiritual noise designed to sound sacred to any listener, regardless of their linguistic background. It's gibberish with intent, creating an impression of ancient ritual without actually meaning anything. Toluca prison graves match developer names. The 3 graves in Silent Hill 2's prison, James, Angela, and Eddie, include tiny carved initials on their lower corners that correspond to Team Silent programmers who built that area: Junya, Akihiro, and Eiji. Masahiro Ito called it their burial in code, acknowledging the point where the dev team nearly burned out finishing the game. These weren't meant as Easter eggs for players to find, but as private acknowledgments of the exhaustion and sacrifice that went into creating that section. The team literally buried themselves in their own horror game. Homecoming's knife intro used real meat sounds. The opening cinematic of Silent Hill, Homecoming, where Alex sharpens his knife, features sounds recorded by pressing contact microphones into raw pork slabs and cutting them. The sound designers wanted that dense, fibrous tone of blade on flesh. The studio apparently smelled like a butcher shop during cleanup, but the results gave the intro its nauseating realism. It's a practical effects approach to audio, capturing the physical reality of violence to make the horror visceral before any monsters appear. SH1's Snow is actually falling ash. Team Silent originally described the constant white particles in Silent Hill 1 as ash drifting from unseen fires, not snow or precipitation. It symbolized the town's slow death after Alessa's immolation, the sky burning, the town exhaling its own cremation. Western localization softened this to snow for American audiences, but the manual still calls it white rain, preserving a hint of the original concept. The ash interpretation makes the opening hours darker, Harry is walking through a town that's actively burning itself away. From the inside, every flake a piece of destruction, made visible. The mannequin corpses react to flashlight flicker. In certain warehouse rooms in Silent Hill 3, if you rapidly toggle Heather's flashlight on and off, the hanging mannequins twitch slightly between light and dark. This wasn't an intentional scare, but a debug animation effect meant to test lighting interpolation that was never disabled. It became an accidental ghost story. Players noticed the bodies seemed to move when the light stuttered, creating paranoia about whether the mannequins were actually alive. The unintended behavior made inanimate objects feel threatening, which is perfect for Silent Hill's aesthetic. Toluca Lake music is based on heartbeats. Akira Yamaoka built the ambient track for Silent Hill 2's Lakeshore using his own recorded resting heartbeat, slowed and filtered through subharmonic synthesis. The tempo subtly rises when James approaches key story objects, the boat, the dock, certain shoreline points. It's one of the few audio loops in the game that literally responds to player behavior, mirroring human physiology to create unconscious tension. Your body recognizes the rhythm even if your conscious mind doesn't, creating discomfort you can't quite explain. Heather's bedroom copies Harry's motel. At the start of Silent Hill 3, Heather's bedroom uses the exact floor plan of Harry's motel room from Silent Hill 1's ending. Window placement, lamp style, furniture arrangement all match. Masahiro Ito deliberately reused the layout as a subliminal cue that Heather is living inside her father's memory. Fans only confirmed the connection years later by overlaying 3D models, but the eerie familiarity affects players unconsciously even on first playthrough. It's environmental storytelling through architecture. Heather literally occupies her father's ending, her beginning shaped by his conclusion. The sewers were real Japanese blueprints. The sewer maps in Silent Hill 1 were traced from actual Tokyo flood drainage plans found in a civil engineering magazine. Designers mirrored and simplified the layout for gameplay, but the proportions remain exact. That's why the sewer feels strangely logical compared to later otherworld spaces. It's grounded in real infrastructure design. Using authentic blueprints gave the environment credible geometry, making players feel like they're navigating actual maintenance tunnels rather than video game levels. PT's burning figure is Alessa. During a hallway flash in PT, a split-second frame shows a burning figure crawling across the floor. Freeze-frame analysis revealed the model is a repurposed asset of Alessa from Silent Hill 3's intro, imported and charred. Kojima's team added it as a hidden acknowledgement that PT was meant to tie the series' spiritual trauma back to its origin. Even in a teaser for a canceled game, the team couldn't resist connecting to Silent Hill's foundational nightmare, the burning child whose pain created the entire mythology. The Ferris wheel shadow spells BIRTH. During Silent Hill 3's amusement park section, when the Ferris wheel rotates under Heather's flashlight, the support beams cast shadows that briefly spell birth. The pattern only aligns once per full rotation, a hidden lighting Easter egg planted by the environment team as visual foreshadowing for the Godbirth finale. It's the kind of detail most players never notice consciously, but which reinforces theme through environmental design. The park doesn't just contain horror, it announces what's coming through temporary shadow geometry. The confessional priest is Yamaoka. The unseen priest's voice in Silent Hill 3's confessional booth belongs to Akira Yamaoka himself. The scheduled voice actor missed the session, so Yamaoka recorded the lines last minute. His slightly off timing, deliberate pauses, soft breath noises, was left unedited to make the confession feel uncomfortably real rather than polished. Yamaoka's amateur delivery actually enhanced the scene's authenticity, proving that sometimes imperfection serves horror better than professional technique. The man in the wheelchair has an unused name. Near the end of Brookhaven Hospital's restricted ward in Silent Hill 2, a nearly hidden figure sits slumped in a wheelchair, motionless. Examine files list him as Samael Old, suggesting he was an unused cult prophet character model. Team Silent kept him in the final build purely as background atmosphere, one of the few human forms in the game never explained or referenced in dialogue. His presence raises questions the game refuses to answer, which is more unsettling than any exposition could provide. Manhole covers have real coordinates. The manhole covers scattered through Silent Hill 2 bear faint numbers along their rims. When mapped, they match real-world coordinates for Lake Tokorozawa, the Japanese lake that inspired Toluca. It was Masahiro Ito's private nod to the series' geographical roots, a ghostly return home etched into pavement most players never examine. The coordinates ground Silent Hill's fictional American setting in actual Japanese topography, revealing the cultural translation at the series' heart. Peephole uses a hidden camera. When you look through Henry's apartment peephole in Silent Hill 4, the game doesn't zoom. It swaps to a secondary render camera positioned on the hallway side of the door. That's why you sometimes catch Eileen's idle animation before she notices you're watching. The slight delay creates the unsettling impression she's been standing there longer than expected, reinforcing the voyeuristic unease of watching neighbors through door security. The Labyrinth echo voices are the developers. The whispered lines in Silent Hill 2's prison labyrinth, "This is punishment, you can't leave her," come from a Team Silent stress recording session. During a crunch night, Yamaoka recorded everyone muttering complaints and reversed the audio. It's literally the developer's exhaustion haunting the level. The subtext writes itself. The team's suffering became the prison's voice. Their frustration with endless development cycles transformed into James's psychological torment. The prison tortures you with the same pain the creators felt making it. Red paper notes were lighting test materials. The red paper notes that slide under Henry's door in Silent Hill 4 originated as lighting test materials. Developers used bright red to check reflection behavior on textures, and someone forgot to swap the color before localization. Rather than fixing it, the team wrote the red paper into the story as Eileen's messages, with red ink as a plot-justified excuse. A technical artifact became narrative detail, turning a forgotten debug tool into character communication. The playground slide leads nowhere. At Lakeside Amusement Park in Silent Hill 3, Heather can climb the playground slide, but the top has a solid, invisible wall. Early builds planned a side area where Heather glimpsed a child running away, but memory limitations forced that map's removal. The slide remained as a symbolic path that childhood no longer opens, climbable but blocked, suggesting access to innocence that no longer exists. Its environmental metaphor through level design restrictions. Pyramid Head's helmet sound is a dragged safe. The metallic grind of Pyramid Head's helmet wasn't digitally generated. It's a steel safe being dragged across concrete. The sound team recorded 10 takes, slowed the best one by 60%, and matched it to the monster's footsteps. Yamaoka said, "The sound of guilt should scrape the floor, so every step Pyramid Head takes literally drags weight behind him." The practical audio approach gave the creature acoustic mass that synthesized sounds couldn't replicate. Hospital whiteboards contain AI pathfinding math. In Brookhaven, hospital staff areas in Silent Hill 2. Some whiteboards display faint equations. They aren't random scribbles, those are AI pathfinding notes left by programmers. The lines describe distance weighting and collision radius calculations used for nurse-enemy behavior. Instead of erasing or replacing them, texture artists photographed the real development office boards and imported them directly. Real work became in-game texture, blurring the line between development space and game world. The Bloody Key had a cut puzzle. In Silent Hill 1, the bloodied key found near the church originally triggered a side puzzle that tracked how many locked doors Harry had forced open. An event counter still exists in the code labeled B key count, but the feature was cut late in development. Team Silent feared it made exploration too procedural instead of dreamlike. The remnant code shows how close the game came to having explicit consequence tracking for player aggression. Church bells sync to real system time. The church bells in Silent Hill 3 ring at intervals matching your console's internal clock. At exactly every real-world hour, the bells sound, even if you're deep underground. Players rarely notice because it syncs seamlessly with ambient play, but if you pause precisely on the hour, the sound continues, marking time in both worlds simultaneously. It's a subtle reminder that Silent Hill operates on schedules beyond the game's internal logic. The water prison is based on a lighthouse. Walter Sullivan's circular prison tower in Silent Hill 4 wasn't modeled on real penitentiary architecture, but on an abandoned lighthouse design from a maritime safety manual. The spiral layout mirrors a beacon's lens chamber, symbolizing illumination that traps instead of guides. Ito chose it because a lighthouse is a tower that lies, promising safety while directing you toward destruction. The architectural metaphor encodes the entire game's theme into building geometry. Save points pulse to music, BPM. The red save squares in Silent Hill 2 subtly pulsate in sync with each area's background track tempo. Every region has its own ambient heartbeat, and the save icon's glow matches it down to the millisecond. This makes saves feel alive, like they're breathing with the level's mood rather than sitting as inert UI elements. It's a micro detail most players never consciously notice, but which contributes to the game's organic atmosphere. Heather's mirror, doppelganger, has independent AI. In Silent Hill 3's mirror room, Heather's reflection isn't a mirrored animation. It's a separate NPC model running a delayed movement script. At a program timestamp, the AI begins to lag input and eventually desync completely, ignoring player commands. That's why the reflection can move after you stop, reinforcing the sense that it's become independent. The technical implementation creates genuine unease. Your avatar's mirror self is literally a different entity controlled by different code. Blood writing quotes an unused song. The wall text in Toluca Prison, "There was a hole here, it's gone now," is a fragment from an unused song Akira Yamaoka wrote early in Silent Hill 2's production. The full lyric read, "There was a hole here where my heart should be." When the track was scrapped, the line survived as graffiti, shifting from love song to epitaph. The wall preserves a ghost of removed content, words from a song players will never hear. Broken TVs use live video noise. The static flicker on broken televisions in Silent Hill 3 isn't pre-rendered. The game dynamically generates randomized pixel interference from math seed values, ensuring no two flickers are identical. The effect was designed to simulate a ghost signal, preventing visual repetition and suggesting something trying to break through. Every screen looks alive with potential communication, static, that might resolve into meaning if you watch long enough. The screaming corpses are audio tests. When you walk through Walter's graveyard stage in Silent Hill 4, distant moans pan eerily left and right. These aren't ambient tracks. They're dummy spatial test sounds used to check 3D audio direction. Developers forgot to disable them, but Yamaoka kept them, saying they sounded like the dead searching for their source. Debug tools became diegetic horror. Accidental test audio transformed into ghosts seeking their own existence. Pyramid Head's first weapon was a scythe. Before the Great Knife, Pyramid Head was designed to wield a giant curved executioner's blade, resembling a scythe. The weapon was scrapped because its swing arc caused camera clipping in tight rooms. The blade literally wouldn't fit through doorways without visual glitches. Iho reworked it into the rectangular slab we know, explaining, "It's not a weapon for killing, it's a burden to drag." The technical limitation forced a design change that became thematic perfection, a punishment implement too heavy to wield properly. The SH2 dog statue reappears in SH3. Inside Silent Hill 3's Hilltop Center storage room, hidden behind cardboard boxes, sits a small dog statue modeled identically to the Shiba Inu from SH2's joke ending. Examine it and Heather just says, "Who would leave this here?" It's a quiet confirmation that Team Silent's joke became part of the town's permanent fabric. The dog's presence suggests the absurd endings are as real as the serious ones, that Silent Hill contains all possible interpretations simultaneously. Town signs change fonts between games. Across Silent Hill 1 to 4, the Welcome to Silent Hill sign uses different typefaces each time: Roman, serif, Gothic. Ito confirmed this wasn't arbitrary. Each font reflected the era of the protagonist. The ornate Gothic letters of Silent Hill 3 were meant to suggest religion dressing itself as hospitality, while the plainer fonts in earlier games matched those characters' simpler perspectives. Typography became environmental storytelling, the town's self-presentation shifting to match who's reading it. SH3's mall music hides a voice. If you isolate the track End of Small Sanctuary that plays in the shopping mall, buried under the melody is a female voice whispering, "Wake up." It's Yamaoka's assistant, looped and time stretched until it becomes rhythmic static. He intended it to pull the player between dreaming and waking, a literal subliminal cue to maintain unease. The whisper operates below conscious awareness, making the mall feel wrong without players understanding why. Map notes are handwritten by different artists. Each Silent Hill game features protagonist written notes on maps, but the handwriting changes because Team Silent assigned unique staff members to write them. In Silent Hill 2, James's scrawl came from the environment modeler. Heather's rounder script in SH3 was penned by a female QA tester. They were scanned at full size, unaltered, making each game's map notes authentically different in ways that reinforce character personality through penmanship. Nowhere is a literal patchwork of earlier levels. The final area of Silent Hill 1, Nowhere, stitches together rooms from the school, hospital, and church into one impossible maze. Designers used a debug command called map warp to drop Harry into disconnected prototype spaces, then justified the chaos narratively. That's why no in-game map exists for Nowhere. There is no layout file, only a chain of teleport triggers linking orphaned rooms. It's architectural nonsense that makes psychological sense. Level design as memory collage. The hospital elevator has random pauses. The long elevator ride in Silent Hill 3's hospital sometimes halts mid-descent for a few seconds. It isn't loading, it's a scripted RNG delay that rolls between 1 and 3 pauses. The team inserted it after testers said the elevator felt too predictable. That random hesitation sells the illusion of the world breathing independently, making the elevator ride feel less like a loading screen and more like actual, uncertain machinery. Alex's dog tags decode to SH1's development date. The numbers on Alex Shepard's dog tags in Silent Hill Homecoming translate to 09-13-83, the day Silent Hill 1 began development. It was Double Helix Studios' hidden lineage marker, connecting their Western developed entry back to the series' creation date. Only visible through texture ripping, it's an Easter egg acknowledging they're working within an established legacy rather than creating something entirely new. Hotel sprinklers are timed to player pathing. In Lakeview Hotel in Silent Hill 2, certain ceiling sprinklers burst only if you cross invisible path nodes near burned rooms. They're not random effects, but triggers tied to common, first-time player routes, so new players almost always get that sudden water hiss. An acoustic jump scare that sells the building as recently scorched and still alive. The illusion of spontaneity is actually careful choreography based on predicted movement. The halo of the sun has two canonical orientations. The Order's halo of the sun appears upright and inverted across Silent Hill 3's areas. Design notes label them ward, upright, protection, ceiling, and summon, inverted, invitation. The game never explains this, but placement follows the rule. Upright at save points and quiet areas, inverted near boss thresholds and altars. It's symbolic consistency that operates without exposition, teaching players to read the environment through repeated pattern. Origins uses real Polaroids for memory items. Several memory items Travis finds in Silent Hill. Origins are scans of actual Polaroids from the art team's personal collections, distressed with acetone to create chemical burns. The authentic emulsion tears make those photos look uniquely ruined compared to standard game textures. They're literally damaged memories captured on real film stock before being digitized. Grave dust uses real particle photography. The floating dust in Toluca Prison's graveyard in Silent Hill 2 isn't algorithmically generated. It's scanned particles from macro photography. Team Silent captured real dust specks over black velvet, then animated them in slow drift loops. It gives the air tactile heaviness that no software noise could match, making the atmosphere feel genuinely oppressive rather than just graphically impressive. The subway rats are immortal by accident. The rats scurrying along subway tracks in Silent Hill 3 can't be killed, not because of invincibility flags, but because they lack collision detection entirely. Developers removed it after testing revealed rats sometimes tripped Heather's combat triggers inappropriately. Their unkillability is an optimization accident that became urban legend, players assuming the rats possess some mysterious protection when they're actually just incorporeal code. Room 303 doesn't exist. Every apartment door in Silent Hill 4 ascends sequentially, except 303, which simply doesn't exist. The team removed it mid-production because that room's ghost sequence caused memory crashes. Rather than renumber everything, they left the gap, and fans later decided Room 303 was where a ritual failed, fittingly erasing itself from reality. The missing number became accidental lore, a void that implies more than content could. Hotel portraits hide staff faces. In Lakeview Hotel's hallway in Silent Hill 2, several portraits of founders hang slightly crooked. Zooming in reveals their photos of Team Silent staff, desaturated and overpainted with period clothing. One is Akira Yamaoka wearing a fake mustache. The developers left them uncredited. tiny self-inserts haunting their own creation, watching James from frames he never examines closely. The nurse AI has 3 behavior tables. Brookhaven's nurses in Silent Hill 3 don't share one AI script. On each load, the game randomly selects one of 3 aggression patterns: fast rushers, cautious circlers, or group attackers. This means no 2 playthroughs encounter identical behavior. It's why the hospital always feels unpredictably alive, even though layouts stay static. Enemy psychology changes each time you visit. The original demo used real police audio. A rarely seen Tokyo Game Show 1998 demo of Silent Hill 1 used real LAPD dispatch audio lifted from a training tape to fill radio chatter. Konami's legal team forced its removal before release. The replacement synthetic static became a series hallmark, but authentic voices still exist in that unreleased build. Proof of how close the game came to using actual emergency services recordings. The burning bed references a real crime. The charred bed in the Silent Hill Historical Society basement in Silent Hill 2 isn't random horror. It's modeled after a 1977 domestic arson case from Pennsylvania that the team discovered in an English-language crime magazine. Ido said they recreated it as a symbol of vengeance that leaves only absence. The texture's black scorch marks come from real police photos, grounding fictional horror in documented violence. The otherworld siren comes from a real alarm. The piercing siren signaling each otherworld shift was sampled from a decommissioned Cold War air raid alarm recorded in Yokosuka, Japan. Yamaoka pitched it down and added tremolo so it feels both mechanical and alive, describing it as a heartbeat that warns itself. The source material carries historical dread, actual emergency preparedness technology, repurposed into fictional apocalypse soundtrack. Bathroom graffiti changes on reload. In the first mall bathroom Heather visits in Silent Hill 3, graffiti reads, "Don't go out," but if you reload the save multiple times, the line slowly changes to, "You already left." The texture cycles between variants depending on session count. A hidden joke about looping nightmares and player persistence. The wall literally comments on your save scumming behavior. Team Silent hit a goodbye in SH3's code. Buried in Silent Hill, 3's executable is unused English text. "We were here, and so was the fog." It's signed TS 2003, the internal tag for Team Silent, 2003 being the game's release year. No one outside Konami saw it until modders cracked files years later. Fans treat it as the studio's unspoken farewell, acknowledging Silent Hill 3 would be their last complete work before the team dissolved. A quiet, fitting epitaph. The final save has a hidden name. If you examine a completed Silent Hill 2 save file's binary data, each ending changes the internal slot name. Most say Memory of the Lake, but the Rebirth ending renames it Forgive Us. Text that never appears on screen. It's encoded only to display in developer debug tools, unseen by players. Team Silent left it as a secret marker that James's loop, even when completed, was never meant to truly end. Cemetery fog is denser on fresh saves. The opening graveyard in Silent Hill 2 uses heavier fog on a fresh save than on New Game Plus. Team Silent did this to push first-time players toward the path out. On replays, fog relaxes slightly so exploration feels wider. It's dynamic difficulty through atmosphere. New players get guided by reduced visibility. Veterans get freedom to wander. Heather's hoodie logo is a real brand mashup. The tiny chest patch on Heather's vest in Silent Hill 3 blends two erased logos from 2002 outdoor wear catalogs. Legal scrubbing removed brand names, but stitch count and thread color were copied exactly, which is why it reads as authentic vintage, even without readable text. It's costume design through forensic recreation, making fiction feel historically accurate. Bowling pins are all different heights. In Pete's Bowl-O-Rama, the lane pins aren't uniform. Prop artists hand-scaled each by a few percent to make the alley read unsettling in wide shots. The tiny mismatch breaks your brain's expectation of symmetry, an uncanny cue you can't consciously identify, but which registers as wrong. It's background wrongness that accumulates subliminal unease. SH4's radio has real apartment noise. Henry's radio in Silent Hill 4 occasionally catches faint voices that don't match the plot. Those clips came from a field recorder placed in a real Tokyo apartment near thin walls. The team layered authentic neighbor chatter under static to sell the idea that normal life is bleeding into the haunting. Its diegetic sound design, the horror of ordinary domesticity intruding on supernatural isolation. SH1's Alley tutorial scales with player hesitation. The first alley gauntlet in Silent Hill 1 adjusts enemy HP and grab chance based on how long you hesitate before entering. Wait at the corner and the game flags you as cautious, softening the encounter. Rush in immediately and it quietly dials aggression up to teach fear through punishment. The opening teaches you to be afraid by reading your behavior and responding accordingly. PT's cockroach is two models. The famous roach on the menu screen is actually two separate bugs positioned head-to-head, animated to crawl apart. It's an in-joke about PT's looping duality. The seam is hidden by motion blur, but pausing on the split second shows duplicate thoraxes detaching. Even the title screen participates in the game's theme of doubling and separation. Bathroom, graffiti pics from a pool. The opening restroom's wall scrawl in Silent Hill 2 isn't fixed. The game selects from a small pool of grime decals when the map loads, meaning screenshots show slightly different streaks across playthroughs. It's an early attempt to make even static rooms feel unstable, minor variations that prevent perfect memorization. Heather hums the save theme. If you set the controller down during safe areas in Silent Hill 3, Heather occasionally hums a 3-note motif matching the first intervals of the save room music. It fires from a low probability idle animation, so most players never hear it. It's Yamaoka's tiny acknowledgement that soundtrack and character share one emotional state. Saint medallions visibly crack. In Silent Hill 4, Saint medallions don't just expire off-screen. Their inventory icon gains a faint fracture after about half their effective duration. The crack thickens one step before failure, letting careful players read durability without timers. It's UI storytelling appropriate for a game obsessed with objects wearing down under haunting. Mirrors reflect the player model twice. The mirrors in Silent Hill 3 don't render a single reflection. They draw two stacked camera feeds, one normal, one ghosted at half opacity. The overlap causes subtle lag in movement, making reflections look like they're remembering actions a frame late. It symbolizes Heather and Alessa's duality without extra cutscenes, the technical implementation literally doubling the character. Park bench, names, and unused ending. On the bench near Rosewater Park in Silent Hill 2, engraved text reads, This is the resting place of eternity. In early drafts, that line was the title of a cut ending where James accepts death peacefully. The concept morphed into the Leave ending, but the original title survived hidden in stone, a gravestone for an ending that never existed. Train ambience loops from Tokyo subway. The haunting metal groan under Henry's subway hauntings in Silent Hill 4 was recorded in a real Marunouchi line tunnel during off hours. The sound team captured wind through ventilation shafts and looped it unfiltered. What you hear isn't sound design at all, but an actual breath from Tokyo's underground imported wholesale. The ash was photographed in a parking lot. The drifting snow particles in Silent Hill 1 were made from photos of dirty salt piles taken in a Tokyo winter parking lot. Artists layered grainy flakes over black velvet and shot them with flash. Real grit gave the effect its distinct, heavy fall pattern that no particle generator could match. Physical photography made digital weather feel material. End credit font used only once elsewhere. The simple white serif in Silent Hill 2's end credits also appears in a single Konami corporate manual from 2000. The art lead chose it because its kerning caused subtle spacing flaws, imperfections that looked like breathing. That same file name, TSN title, was never used in another project, making it uniquely associated with Team Silent's conclusion. Ghost victims have unique heartbeats. Each of the 21 ghost victims in Silent Hill 4 emits a unique heartbeat audio track, barely audible under static. Yamaoka matched their tempos to victims' recorded death times in concept notes. Slow for strangulation, fast for stabbing. Layered together, they form the pulsing roar filling Walter's final chamber. Morgue drawers use real autopsy labels. When you zoom into morgue body drawers in Silent Hill 3, each tag shows faint, almost unreadable handwriting. Those aren't random scribbles. They're scanned autopsy log notes from a Japanese medical training manual bought secondhand by the texture artist. Konami's legal team only caught it years later, but since text was illegible, it stayed in. Prison gate sounds are repitched animal cages. The metallic gate shrieks in Toluca Prison came from rusted zoo enclosures in Saitama. The sound team recorded zookeepers closing lion cages, then lowered pitch by 2 octaves. The result, long, uneven groans, gave the gates a tortured, almost vocal tone, making architecture sound like it's in pain. Candle flames react to audio. The candle flame animation in Henry's apartment in Silent Hill 4 actually responds to the game's reverb level. When hauntings spike and background noise increases, flame particle speed doubles, making it flicker more violently. The visual reacts to terror, tying sound design and lighting together for the first time in the series. Silent Hill F's red string is a funeral knot. The red chords wrapping hallways and victims in Silent Hill F echo the Mizuhiki funeral knot, a waji musubi, a traditional binding used for condolences that's intentionally hard to untie. It fits the game's theme of bonds that don't let the dead go, making decoration double as cultural symbolism. The design team researched traditional Japanese mourning practices to ground horror in authentic ritual. Town falls, radio static spells words. Early Silent Hill, Townfall teasers hide spectrogram Easter eggs, converting the trailer's radio hiss into images reveals phrases like "don't go out." It's a nod to series' tradition of turning background noise into diegetic messages from the town, proving the new developers understand that Silent Hill communicates through layers you have to work to uncover. Controller vibration taps out warnings when James nears certain hidden items in Silent Hill 2, like the book sets in Lakeview. The game fires short, long vibration pulses mimicking rudimentary tap code. It isn't true Morse, but the pattern teaches players to feel secrets before seeing them. Silent Hill whispering through the controller, making discovery tactile. Robbie's eyes are real glass. The Robbie the Rabbit models in Silent Hill 3 use photographed doll eyes set into texture maps rather than painted pupils. Glass reflections shift slightly with camera angle, making Robbie appear to follow you even when static. That minor parallax became the character's accidental creep factor. You're never sure if he's looking at you or through you. Save file icon changes after 10 clears. After 10 complete runs of Silent Hill 2, the standard red save square icon turns dull brown in the file menu. There's no message or reward. It was a quiet thank you from Team Silent to obsessives. Only players who replayed double digits ever saw it. A secret handshake between developers and the truly devoted. Eileen's doll head uses ghost code. The dismembered doll head on Henry's shelf in Silent Hill 4 behaves like a micro ghost. It emits low EMF pulses interfering with medallions. Developers reuse full ghost aura script but reduced its radius. That's why it still flickers room lighting even when inert. The toy haunts through recycled enemy AI. The first alley monster has a unique death animation. The first creature that kills Harry in Silent Hill, one's opening alley, never appears again, and neither does its animation. It has a custom death sequence, grabbing, mauling, shaking the model violently, made solely for that scripted loss. Code references it as DEMOKILL, proving it was meant to feel like playable nightmare, not game over. The closet monster was fan rumor made real. Players once joked that a monster would burst from the blood-stained closet in Silent Hill 3's Hilltop Center office. When Team Silent caught the rumor online mid-development, they added a sudden pounding sound to that closet in a later build. No monster ever appears, but the scare lives as community folklore written back into the game. Cemetery Angel points toward endings. The angel statue by Angela's opening scene in Silent Hill 2 faces west, directly toward Toluca Lake. Its base text reads, "Take thy rest beside the water." The direction is deliberate. Every main ending route leads back to the lake. It's a literal compass to James's fate, hidden in plain sight before the story begins. SH4's victim wall marks shift position. The bloody numbers carved into Walter's apartment wall in Silent Hill 4 subtly change position each revisit. They shift by a few pixels, enough that your brain registers something off without noticing why. Devs scripted those offsets manually to simulate the apartment breathing between hauntings. Angela's mirror room hides a body. Freeze frame the camera pan when Angela stands before the mirror in Silent Hill 2. There's a blurred corpse mesh behind her reflection, positioned half inside the wall. It was meant to fade in as she spoke, but a lighting bug made it invisible in real time. The shadow outline remains, encoded as a file name, _and _G_ dead. Subway ads are real missing person posters. One peeling poster in Silent Hill 3's Subway is based on a real Tokyo missing person flyer from the late 90s, replaced with English text for localization. The design team used it as texture reference and forgot to erase the photograph's eyes. Only Western testers noticed and assumed it was a secret clue. James's rowing speed depends on guilt. During the lake crossing near Silent Hill 2's finale, the boat's rowing speed quietly ties to James's guilt variable governing endings. If you've leaned toward despair, the in-water path, the boat rows slower no matter how fast you paddle. It's not input lag, it's the game making James resist escape. Ghost children were removed teachers. Early concept art for Silent Hill 1 school labeled shadow children as teachers who lost form. Their glowing eyes were placeholders for glasses and unfinished models. Sensors forced removal of humanoid details, so Team Silent flattened them into silhouettes. Their animations still seem educated, cautious, remnants of who they used to be. Eileen's whispers are reverse English. When Eileen mutters during possession in Silent Hill 4, her voice sounds like nonsense. Reverse the audio, and she says broken English phrases like, "He's coming," and "Don't open the door." The team recorded real lines, flipped them backward, then added pitch wobble, so even comprehension feels haunted. Ferris wheel, sounds are playground metal. The metallic groan when the Ferris wheel turns in Silent Hill 3 isn't Foleyed. It's a real playground swing set recorded at 3 a.m. in Kawasaki. Yamaoka wanted it to sound too small for what you see, giving the impression of God-sized machinery made from fragile human parts. Apartment window light equals save data. The faint orange glow from the window across Rosewater Park in Silent Hill 2 comes from a rendered cube whose brightness equals your save count. Players who save often see it burn steadily. Those with few saves see it flicker. It's meta-visualization of obsession disguised as scenery. Chain physics were borrowed from canceled project. The rusted chains in Silent Hill 4's water prison reused tech from an unreleased Konami horror prototype called Broken Cell. Team Silent borrowed its early ragdoll rope physics and repurposed them for ghost restraints, turning leftover code into one of the game's most distinctive visual motifs. Developer Test Cell has a sign. Inside Silent Hill 2's labyrinth, there's an unreachable developer test cell that loads if you clip through wrong coordinates. The room contains a single sign reading, "You're not supposed to be here." The message is baked into texture, no translation data, suggesting it was a private joke, not a debug warning. Elevator buttons randomly light on return. If you revisit certain floors after completing the hospital in Silent Hill 3, 1 or 2 elevator buttons glow without effect. They're dummy indicators from a scrapped puzzle that tracked which floors you'd corrupted. The script was cut, but lights stayed, forever hinting the building remembers what you did. Victim 17 appears twice. The model used for Victim 17 in Silent Hill 4, the child with chains, is duplicated deep in the final subway level, positioned behind a sealed grate, motionless, with all collision removed. The reuse was unintentional, but players who spot it feel the town's cruelty. Even the dead are recycled. Apartment TV signal mirrors your health. The static on the turned-off TV in Woodside Apartments in Silent Hill 2 subtly shifts hue based on James's current health bar. When near death, it gains faint red tint and heavier noise. It's the only environmental object coded to react to player health, an ambient heart monitor disguised as background detail. Insane Cancer has a second face. Hidden beneath the folds of the Insane Cancer model in Silent Hill 3 is a second, half-finished human face texture, mapped upside down. It was meant to pulse under the surface like trapped flesh, but got disabled for performance. You can still see hints of teeth through seams when the creature dies. Ghost Baby uses dog rig. The floating ghost infant near room 202 in Silent Hill 4 runs on the same animation skeleton as the Shiba Inu from SH2's Dog Ending. The file name Dog Bone Rig remained unchanged. It was reused as technical shortcut, but accidentally gave the ghost its strange, twitchy movement style. Radio static pitch matches boss proximity. In Silent Hill 1, the closer you get to a boss arena, the higher the radio's static pitch climbs. Developers linked it to the next encounter's spawn ID, letting the town tune in to its own violence. It's subtle enough that players feel tension rising without realizing it's a proximity cue. Hospital mirrors hide a frozen nurse. Freeze the frame during the hospital mirror scene in Silent Hill 3, just as corruption spreads. You'll catch a nurse model embedded in the reflection, standing motionless behind Heather. The figure never moves or appears in the normal world, but its shadow remains in the mirror's lighting data. Chain room plays heartbeat in surround. When Henry first enters the chained bedroom in Silent Hill 4, a nearly inaudible heartbeat loop pans across surround channels every few seconds. It's not tied to soundtrack. It's an ambient file placed just beneath the floor mesh. The effect makes the entire apartment feel like a sleeping organism. Blue Creek key has hidden word. Zoom into the apartment key texture for Blue Creek in Silent Hill 2, and you'll find faint engraving reading Remind on the shaft near the grip. The team added it late as metaphor for James's subconscious. Every locked door being a memory he's forcing himself to face. Heather's eyes have dynamic shader. Heather's eyes in Silent Hill 3 aren't static textures. They have a micro-reflective shader adjusting to nearby light sources. When she walks past neon or candles, pupils catch those exact color tones. It's one of the earliest examples of environmental lighting used for emotional realism in horror games. Apartment clock keeps real system time. The wall clock in room 302 displays your console's actual system clock. When hauntings accelerate, it starts running slightly fast using an internal timer offset. That growing desynchronization is literal. Henry's home time slipping away from reality. Final save room is built from earlier maps. The quiet hotel room before James's last choice in Silent Hill 2 isn't new. It's a collage of reused geometry from apartment and hospital levels, stitched at impossible angles. Team Silent copied walls and doors from past maps, resized them, dimmed lighting until nothing perfectly aligns. The effect is subconscious. The world has folded every place James visited into one final purgatory. The underwater prisoner. In the Lakeview Hotel basement, there's a peculiar holding cell that, when examined, produces underwater bubbling sounds. No enemy spawns, but the ambient audio suggests something trapped beneath flooded floorboards. It's environmental storytelling that never resolves, a prisoner you hear but never see. Henry's name has Japanese wordplay. In Japanese, Henry can be written to phonetically resemble Hitori, alone. This wordplay on the protagonist's isolation was intentional. The character's name literally embodies his condition of being trapped alone. Western players miss this layer entirely, but it colors the Japanese understanding of Henry's arc. The first game's budget was minuscule. Team Silent's budget for the original Silent Hill was so small, they couldn't afford extensive motion capture or celebrity voice talent. This constraint forced them to rely on atmosphere, sound design, and psychological tension rather than spectacle, accidentally creating the series' defining characteristics. The limited budget became the foundation of a design philosophy. H3 developers considered a male protagonist. Before committing to Heather, Team Silent briefly considered making Silent Hill 3's protagonist male. They quickly realized that the game's themes of bodily autonomy, forced pregnancy, and religious persecution of women required a female perspective. Heather became the series' first female protagonist not as representation but as narrative necessity. The Bubblehead Nurse Design Evolution. The Bubblehead nurses weren't in the original Silent Hill 2 design documents. They evolved from simpler nurse concepts after Masahiro Ito experimented with obscuring faces. The iconic swollen, pulsating heads came from combining medical fetishism with body horror, making something that could have been erotic instead deeply unsettling. Origins almost featured alchemical symbols. Silent Hill Origins initially planned an alchemical puzzle system where Travis would combine elements to create tools and weapons. The system was scrapped as too complex for the PSP hardware, but remnants appear in the game's visual design, alchemical symbols decorating certain rooms without explanation. The Konami code works in SH1. Input the famous Konami code at certain screens in the original Silent Hill, and you'll unlock small bonuses, mostly cosmetic differences in Harry's starting location or slight dialogue changes. It's a tradition Konami games carried from arcade days, slipped into horror as Easter egg. Walter's victim photos show real people. The 21 victim photographs in room 302's hallway in Silent Hill 4 show actual Team Silent staff and their relatives. Art director Masashi Tsuboyama included himself among the victims. He joked that becoming a sacrifice was part of his job description, literalizing the team's devotion to the project. The dog ending theme has lyrics. The cheerful song playing during Silent Hill 2's dog ending actually has Japanese lyrics that roughly translate to, "You thought this was serious, but it was a dog all along." They're barely audible under the instrumental, but Japanese players who isolated the vocal track discovered the joke went deeper than the visual gag. SH1's ambulance ending is a total myth. For years, rumors circulated about a supposed ambulance ending, where Harry rampages through Silent Hill, GTA style. Data miners scoured files and found nothing whatsoever supporting this ending's existence. It's one of gaming's persistent urban legends, proof that Silent Hill's mystery breeds false memories. The hidden boogeyman enemy. Silent Hill 1 contains an unused enemy called the Boogeyman in its code, different from the later Boogeyman in Silent Hill Origins. Files show a hunched creature design that apparently tested poorly and was cut. Its AI routines still exist, suggesting it once patrolled the school or hospital. Lisa's backstory changed multiple times. Lisa Garland's narrative role shifted dramatically during Silent Hill 1's development. Early scripts had her as a cult member, then a victim, then something between. The final version leaves her status ambiguous by design, but abandoned dialogue files reveal the multiple character paths she might have taken. The Order's name came late. The cult in Silent Hill wasn't called the Order in early development. That term was coined during localization to give the antagonist a clear identity. Japanese materials use vaguer terminology, reflecting the diffuse nature of folk belief corrupted by trauma rather than organized religion. SH2's locations draw from multiple sources. While Toluca Lake was inspired by Lake Tokorozawa, other locations in Silent Hill 2 pull from disparate sources. The apartments from New York tenements Team Silent photographed during U.S. research trips, the hospital from Japanese psychiatric facilities, the prison from Pennsylvania penitentiaries. The town is a geographic collage. The fog is protagonist specific. Team Silent conceptualized fog differently for each game. Harry's fog represents repressed memory. James's fog symbolizes avoidance. Heather's fog manifests as religious oppression. The same environmental effect carries different thematic weight depending on whose nightmare you're experiencing. Robbie's original design was more sinister. Early Robbie the Rabbit sketches show a far more overtly menacing design, sharper teeth, more violent postures, bloodier mouth. Team Silent softened him to make the contrast between cute mascot and horror context more unsettling. The cognitive dissonance of cheerful branding in nightmare settings became more effective than explicit threat. Monsters were modeled from clay first. Before digital modeling, Masahiro Ito created physical clay sculptures of many monsters. These were photographed from multiple angles and used as 3D modeling references. Some clay originals still exist in Konami's archives, tangible artifacts of digital horror.